And welcome to today's session. All right, so I hope you're ready to kick things off here. Give me a one in the chat if you can see my screen, you can hear my voice. Just about to get everything kicked off right now. I just need a few ones in the chat so I know that you can at least hear my voice and see my screen here. A few more ones, then I know I'm good, that there's no technical issues. All right, good stuff. All right, quick sound check. All right, so let's kick everything off then. All right, so the topic for today is pretty exciting. It's the 10-minute content trick, okay, that Jeff Bezos uses at Amazon, that I use also to dominate Google, to dominate ChatGPT and AI traffic. Okay, this is something that's actually quite boring to do. You'll probably find this a pretty exciting and eye-opening presentation today, where I'm going to take you through exactly how we do this and why we do it. And it's going to be a big eye-opener, but actually doing it, once you know how, it's so simple that it's just really, really boring, but it makes a lot of money. And I'm going to talk about the philosophy behind this, why this works, how just some of the crazy just screw-ups that everybody else is making. And you're probably going to see and have your eyes open to just a massive absolute flaw in the industry, which might wake you up to why most people are struggling, while you can actually be driving huge traffic with massive, massive, insane returns that are just absolutely crazy. So let's jump into this here today. All right, so this is going to be a massive wake-up call for most of you here on this session if you haven't seen what we've been doing and how we approach this. All right, so let's jump in and begin here, because this is something which drives literally millions of dollars in sales with the highest return that we've ever seen. Okay, so if this sounds interesting, give me a one in the chat box. Okay, now for most people running a business, this is kind of how they feel about getting traffic. Okay, whether you're running paid ads, you're doing organic, social media, whatever it is, that you're able to maybe get a little bit, but otherwise you kind of feel that you're in a desert and you just can't grow your traffic. Okay, and what we're going to go through today, we're going to talk about the way to get the absolute best traffic. What do we define as the best traffic? Traffic that actually makes you money, visitors to your website, to your business that makes you money. We're going to look at a number of case studies, okay, including one where we blew up to add 90,000 per month in revenue in just a couple of months. Okay, but with massive, massive returns. Okay, so huge profit margins. We're going to talk about how you can dominate in competitive niches, how you can actually go into competitive niches and take on massive brands. Okay, this is crazy that as like a small brand that you'll be able to do this, and you can actually steal the traffic from the competitors, and also how to escape the biggest lifestyle lie which you are hearing right now. Okay, this hustle culture which is going on, this idea of running tons of ads, all of these different things, which ultimately is leading people down a very, very stressful path where their profit margins are very thin and they're running a stressful business. Okay, and I'm going to give you here essentially a simple 3 to 4 hour task, which you can use to, in 3 to 4 hours, generate 12 to 36K per year, but also you can stack this and apply this on an ongoing basis to grow it into 7 figures. All right. And so who is this for? Okay. Well, essentially anyone who has a website, who has a product which they're selling online. We primarily do this for e-commerce companies. We work with a lot of agencies who do this for all sorts of businesses, including local businesses. Ultimately, if you've got a website, you want traffic, this is something you should pay attention to. It allows you to boost your organic sales, especially in e-commerce. You can steal traffic from competitors. I do this every single day, wildly profitable and a lot of fun taking on big competitors in your industry. Okay, you can use this to just grow your own blog or website traffic, and you can even sell this as a service with 90% profit margins, okay, at 1 to 3K per month. And it's absolutely incredible at getting you to show up in AI. And we've had many, many people applying this with success, growing their traffic, selling it as a service, and just having essentially huge, huge results. Okay, so I'm going to go through this in 2 parts. Okay, I'm going to go through the philosophy, the why I approach this. You're going to learn a little bit of some things about how I run my business. I don't talk about life or lifestyle so much, but you get like a little bit of a peek into some of the things which I do and why I do them. And then we'll look into the method. All right. So if this is cool, you like the sound of this, give me a 5 in the chat box and we'll jump right in. And, with your permission as well, I'll go into my philosophy, which has a little bit of a story here, which I think is uh, pretty interesting for you. So you might not know too much about me, but I've been running an online business for well over a decade. I did it simply because I wanted to travel, right? I didn't want to take a job and I wanted to travel. Back when I started, there wasn't courses and guides on like how to run a business. There wasn't YouTube. In fact, one of my first businesses, as I tried before kind of YouTube was even a thing, I tried to make a version of Netflix. So we got hundreds of thousands of visitors to that. But ultimately, it was a failed project because I never monetized it. But I learned how to drive massive traffic. And then I've done a lot in content, in blogging, and I built a software company as I've worked with a lot of e-commerce companies and grown tons of organic traffic and driven literally millions and millions and millions, like 100 million plus in visitors for myself and for brands. Okay. And driven millions of sales along with that. And throughout this, I've traveled the world, all right, to the point that I've got sick of traveling because I've done so much traveling at this point. All right. And a philosophy for me in business is just to do the right thing, to run a good business that adds value and just to live a simple life. All right. And I think this is in contrast to a lot of what you might see out there, which is hustle culture, get as rich as you possibly can and look, cool as fuck, right? Really like what I do in business is we're trying to level the playing field and fight for the little guy. So we don't work with Fortune 500 companies. We work with small to medium businesses and help them scale 7, 8, 9 figures. Okay. That's what we're about. And so I've been doing content since 2007. One of my early websites here, you can see the logo up on screen, and this generated millions in sales. Okay. So this was back in 2007. Okay. I found a strategy which drove millions in sales. Okay. So I drove literally millions of dollars in handbag sales between 2007 and 2010. And this is when I first started traveling. Okay. And I now use this in hundreds of niches. We leverage AI to make this even faster. Okay. We do it for thousands of clients. Okay. But ultimately, the method, the foundation of this, while we're using new tech, while it's faster, okay, while we're way more advanced, while we can do way more massive volume than what I could do, say, 15 years ago, it's based on the same method. Okay. And so, question for you, all right, just give me a yes in the chat, is do you want to know how to do the same? How to take a method that worked 15 years ago, has continued to work all of those 15 years, okay, and continues to work today, but not only does it continue to work today, it's actually crushing everything else. And part of the reason why is it's as boring as hell. Nobody talks about it. And I think it's just almost too simple for people to believe that this process actually works. Okay. But I'm going to show you and I'm going to prove it to you, and you're going to see some really, really crazy results from this. So let's start with part one here, which is the philosophy. Because, I think often, and just let me know in the chat here, have you got into business and have you built a business and you're building a business and then finding it's not giving you the lifestyle that maybe you want? And I want you to think and reflect on the question about why you got into business in the first place, why you became an entrepreneur, okay, why you became a marketer, why you're looking to grow traffic, why you're going down the career route that you're going through, and why you've done that, and is it giving you the result which you wanted? Okay. Feel free to share in the chat. Just give me like some of the reasons why you got into business in the first place, whether it was like financial freedom, whether it was, like for myself to be able to travel, okay, whether it was, to make money, to launch a product, something that you're passionate about. We've all got something that we got into business. And one of, I think, the common reasons for many of us is to make our lives easier. All right. And so, you know, just give me a one in the chat. And I'd appreciate a lot of interaction here. All right. It's an interactive session. You're going to get more out of this if you interact. All right. Did you get into it because you maybe saw something like this or you envisioned something like this? Like you see, this is me on screen with my son. This is going back now maybe about 10, 12 years. But I got into the business to travel. Okay, and so this is myself and my son, who looks pretty small there. He's 15 now, but we traveled the world together, right? So myself, my family, my kids, we've traveled the world, been all over the world while I've run this business. Okay, and so I've been doing that since about 2008. Okay, and so just give me a one in the chat, right? If this is the type of thing which you were looking for and hoping for, it might not be travel, but some positive impact on your lifestyle. Okay. I'm not going to be showing you here how to start a business. I'm not going to be showing you here how to get this lifestyle. It's going to be something very, very eye-opening. Okay. All right. So appreciate that. All right. So thank you for for answering in the chat. Just helps to know like we're on the same page, right? So I think a lot of us got into business for reasons like this, right? To improve our lifestyle. But this is the reality, okay, of what it was like traveling the world while running a business. And, I had many, many great moments and many great experiences. But here, for example, in 2014, I was growing my business. I was traveling a lot and I was getting pretty exhausted with young kids. So this is my second child asleep on the bed. And just being jet lagged, traveling and trying to run a business was hard. And this is a picture of me here in Hong Kong with my two kids. You can see one head under my arm, little toddler there. And I've come from about 2 or 3 days of an event in Hong Kong. I'm also setting up a company in Hong Kong at the time. You can see there's luggage and crap everywhere. I've got my keyboard in the corner on the left, right, because I took that when I used to take that traveling and tried to practice doing an instrument, which I never got time for. So I had a pretty exhausting few days. I'd been traveling a lot, and the next day I got sick. And so I had food poisoning, and we were leaving the country the day after. We had nowhere booked. And with two kids, you can appreciate this was pretty stressful. And I was very, very overworked because, I was building a company. And this was definitely like a tough time. And, I like at the time as well, like I had around this time, I had my cortisol measured. So they measure your cortisol, and I was at the point, and I think I'm in my late 20s here, maybe early 30s. And my cortisol was not functioning properly. I think because of so much travel, of so much work, that they were borderline whether they were going to give me hormone injections because my cortisol, my adrenal glands have been like shot from all of the stress. Okay. And this is the thing you don't hear, and this is what people don't talk about when it comes to running a business is this is often more the reality, and these are the pictures that people don't show you. And I guarantee you everyone out there who's showing you an amazing lifestyle is actually experiencing more of this than the amazing lifestyle that they show you in these sort of pictures. Okay, so social media shows you the wins, it doesn't show you the lows. Okay, and that's a problem because essentially you're being lied to, right? About what works, what is effective, and what is the outcome of the work that you do. Okay. And you hear this all of the time, right? So this is Conor McGregor, and he's saying there's no talent here. There is hard work. There is an obsession. Talent does not exist. We're all equals. You could be anyone if you put in the time. You will reach the top, and that's it. I'm not talented. I am obsessed. So this is the hustle culture. This is the work your ass off and become great. And of course, if you work a lot, if you put in your 10,000 hours, you're going to have a result from that. Okay. But it comes at a cost. And we see this hustle culture constantly of just work, 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 work. Okay. And I think the biggest person in business social media right now, okay, they talk about the hustle culture. They talk about being unhappy and to fuck happiness. And that the main thing that you should be focused on to change your life is just to work your ass off. Okay. Um, I don't know these people directly, but I can tell you from successful people that work their ass off, they often have some issues, some traumas, and a lot of problems. Okay. In the majority of cases, not always, but in many of the cases. Right. And so is that really what you want to sign up for when you're running your business and when you're making business decisions that you essentially sacrifice yourself, your life, your family, and your happiness to get the results? And so I was following the laws of success, but something was going wrong. I mentioned that my cortisol wasn't working and my cortisol levels were dropping, and essentially like I had essentially a clinical burnout. Okay. That just required rest to recover. But you can literally put yourself in a state of very, very ill health with the level of stress that can come from running a business. Okay. And just like sportsmen who push themselves to the limit, like here you've got Conor McGregor who works his ass off, but then went into a fight not fully healed from an injured leg and then his leg just snapped. Okay. So sometimes the hustle culture is just going too far and you might snap. Okay. Something in you might snap, and if it snaps, you ain't going to win. All right. And so, yes, hard work is mandatory. If you're running a business, you're going to have to put the time in. Okay. But maybe we can avoid breaking a leg along the way. Okay. And just to be realistic, and just let me know if you agree with this, and just give me a one in the chat, that you might notice that many successful people you see have mental illnesses, they're traumatized, they're unhappy, okay? They have problems. And often they have more problems than regular people, okay? Give me a one if you recognize this and you agree that, there's a strong element of truth to this, and maybe a two if you think this is just BS, okay? And so the question is there an alternative to this? All right? Is there an alternative? Because all we hear is work, work, work. Okay? Well, I'm going to show you that it doesn't have to be this way. Okay? So there's a company here called Basecamp. Okay? Run by a guy called Jason Fried. You can see it up on screen here. I'm Googling it. All right. And what does it say the revenue is for this company? 280 million in annual revenue. Is this person a success? Yes or no? 280 million a year. But here's what's interesting. They have never, ever received funding. They own the business outright. You don't get companies hitting 280 million without funding very, very often. Okay. So this is a huge success because they haven't had funding and they've maintained ownership the entire time, and they've continued to grow right over the years and just get more and more revenue. Okay. Now, why is this interesting? Well, it comes from the company 37 Signals. So that's Jason's company. And just to give you an idea of one of their philosophies, okay, is their 888 rule. Okay. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for life, 8 hours for sleep. Okay. And they say a lack of sleep is not a badge of honor. Okay. And they're talking here about a balanced life. Okay. And so this, obviously, I would imagine this owner has had times where they've been very, very busy, but to maintain the success over a decade, this is more realistic. Okay. And I would say I don't get mental illness vibes from this, from Jason, the CEO here. All right. And so it's not common, but it can be done. Okay. And most entrepreneurs aren't honest about the downsides and the reality of what they're really going through. So if you've heard of Tim Ferriss, you might have heard of him. He's been writing books and helping entrepreneurs for, the past kind of 20 years, I think. And he's honestly said that he's had suicidal thoughts, that he's had a lot of stress, he's had deep problems, and he's talked about his demons. Okay. But this isn't so common. All right. Now, let's read this on screen because this is someone that I think we all know here. Okay. And this is some highlights from their life here. All right. And so they woke up screaming and vomited from stress, borrowed money from friends to pay rent, all while working two jobs. Their own brother bit a chunk of flesh off their hand during a fight. And this wasn't just a random fight between two brothers. It was a fight at work in an office. Okay. And it required stitches and a tetanus shot, has alleged use of ketamine, known to use sleep aids and Adderall, relentless social media addict, for work purposes, and continuing their careers, expressed issues with loneliness, stating if he is working on site and forgets his dog and he goes to sleep lonely, he's in a little house by himself with not even a dog, 3 divorces, several failed relationships, eldest child legally changed their name, described the father as a terrible human being, all right? And in their own words, you don't want to be me. You think you do, but you don't. Anyone know who this is? Right? Anyone want to make a guess in the chat? Any ideas? You can just say no if you don't know. I'll wait for at least one answer to come in here. Who do you think this is? Okay, no ideas? Yeah, Serge got it. This is Elon Musk. Okay. So Elon Musk is not a happy man. All right. And Elon Musk works like crazy. Okay. And for sure, he's done a lot of crazy achievements through his life. Right. But you wouldn't want to be him. Okay. And so, sure, getting rich, becoming a billionaire, these are choices that you can make. All right. But ultimately, as well, you choose your sacrifice. And so there's choices that you make in business that could maybe make you more successful and make you more money, but won't make you happy. But there's also choices you can make in business that will make you more successful and won't eat so much time and won't be so stressful. Okay. And I didn't start a business to be burned out and plugged into the internet. Okay. I've got people on my team, and I don't ask them to do this, but many of them do, is, they'll install Slack on their phone, their messaging apps, and they're more connected to the business than I am. Okay. I will go out. If I go out with my phone, I have a separate work phone, so I don't get any work messages when I go out unless it's an emergency and someone's trying to reach me directly. Okay. So I can go for, a long period without being interrupted with work things. Okay. Should I need to? And so, a different question and a different philosophy is how can we get amazing results without sacrificing our life? And so this requires a different philosophy. And so when I've looked at my business and what I'm building, all right, I've ensured and I've wanted to ensure that I can build it in this way. And your list might be different, or you might resonate with my list here. So let's have a read of it. But and I wanted the freedom to not have the pressure of needing to be an influencer. Okay. I didn't want to be an influencer, a YouTuber, and have that to be a core part of my business where I have to be the face. Okay. Because that ties me down. All right. And I didn't want to be tied to the business every day. I want to be able to say, hey, I'm going somewhere tomorrow, and that's fine. Okay. And, ideally like the same for all the people on our team, right? That they can take time off, right? And that they can be more in charge of their own schedule. That I could be invisible if I wanted and just make sales from providing real value, from having a good product. Okay. Not rely on tricks, hypes, or gimmicks to make sales. Live a simple life based on simple time-tested values and provide something valuable and genuine that help people and empower others to do the same. All right. So this has been essentially my list, right? And so a key core of this of being able to do a business where you have more control over your life is actually by choosing to do less and choosing to work on the things which deliver that. Okay. Right. So here we've got someone who wakes up without an alarm every day, works 40 hours a week, not 80, and they only work 32 hours a week in the summer. They don't have to-do lists. Okay. I like to have to-do lists. They don't use the to-do list. Everyone's got their own way. They avoid news. Okay. They don't get drawn up in the news. Their company is about 80 people. They've been profitable for 20 years, married to the same person, kids at home, built a custom house in Chicago. They reject the hustle culture. They spend their spare time collecting watches, never worked for anyone else, started at 13, figured out didn't want to have a career working for others, and has a philosophy it doesn't have to be crazy at work. Okay. All right. So this person, all right, is the guy who runs Basecamp that I just mentioned. Okay. And so maybe not a billionaire. Well, actually, in essence, as a billionaire, if you have 280 million in revenue per year, then for sure your business, you're at the billionaire level. All right. But they're not, close to trillionaire, say like Elon Musk, but they're doing pretty well. So this goes to show that there is a way to do this. And I've also done this as well of building a business and having more freedom in life, right? And so you choose your philosophy of how you want to run your business, okay? And so, like I mentioned, they have this 888 rule of 8 hours for work, 8 hours for life, and 8 hours of sleep, okay? I think one thing for me is I've always needed a lot of sleep, right? So I don't function well without sleep. So I've always made sure that I get good sleep, and it's kind of I've built my life around that. Maybe you can say that's like lazy, right? But that's essentially what I've done. And another part of their philosophy is to know no, right? That to saying no to one thing is not the answer. It's saying no to a lot of things. All right. So to be successful here, it's saying yes is no to a lot of things. It means that you have to pick very, very carefully the things that you focus on. Okay. And that means you need to find out what's really important. Um, and here's where the practical advice comes in, which is what I call the systems test. This is going to help you understand what's really important in your business and where you're really needed. And you should do this at some point or another. Okay. And so this is my calendar here from 2021. Okay. And I'll do something like this periodically, just not to an extreme. Okay. But what do you see in my calendar here? And this was my busy month, by the way. Okay. My calendar now, like for say like this week, it's busy every day because I'm on a working week. But what do you notice about this? There's a ton of free time. It's pretty much empty. And actually here you'll see that if it's big enough on your screen, it says a stay at the Hilton Garden Inn. Okay, so this is staying at a hotel, but it's in my calendar because it's actually work. Okay, because I'm going to an event, but I'm going to an event not quite as work. I'm going to be speaking at the event, but it's kind of fun for me. It's seeing an old friend who's then grown their own company, and it's just helping them out. And it's like, hey, cool, yeah, I'll come to New York, see New York a little bit, hang out with you, speak at the event, help you out, and just enjoy, right? And so that was the most work I did in that month. Okay, in the month before. I essentially here took 3 months off work and I worked about 1 to 2 hours per month, just checking in with the team. 1 to 2 hours per month plus this. Okay. This is doing 8 figures per year. Okay. So over $10 million per year, I'm off for 3 months. Okay. And so, as part of this, I did, an interesting thing with the team, right? Which is where I said, hey, if you've been with the company for several years, we're going to give you up to 3 months off sabbatical. Okay. Um, I got the idea because my girlfriend, she also was given, or her company gave out sabbaticals after several years. And I thought that's a great idea. Reward your team and give them a longer break. But this was done strategically for a reason as well. It's done with a business purpose. And so I came up with this idea and said, hey, we're going to be doing this. And I've been at the company the longest, so I get to go first, right? And so I went straight on my sabbatical because, I hadn't had so many vacations over the years before. And I thought, well, I'm working hard. I've built a business, so I should take the reward from this. But it's also strategic. Why is it strategic? Because you figure out how to get more done with less. Because guess what? If you're not working for 3 months and I'm only going to be inputting 2 hours of work per month, that's going to be the highest value 2 hours. And I'm also going to see where the team and where the company needs me. Okay. Like where do they fall apart? And also it shows how little I was actually needed. So before that, I was working every day. Okay. And in the 3 months I was away, we made more money, but I wasn't part of it. I was able to test the systems that I'd put in place to see if they were effective. Now, if I did that constantly, the company would decline, but it did give me a lot of perspective of where my time was important. Okay. So give me a one in the chat if you can recognize that even just taking a week or 2 weeks away from your business and only allowing yourself to be, say, contacted for 1 hour by your team, okay, or by your AI, or just to let the business run and just see what happens, right, and see what kind of crops up as the most important thing is an actual really good stress test for a business, okay? And it's a good way to start this exercise of how to get more done with less. And you might not be ready to take the time off because maybe you've got to put some things in place, but then you will see why you can't step away when you actually ask yourself, what would it take? Because guess what? If I can step away from the business for 3 months, it means that in the time I was there, I wasn't using my time in the best way possible. And I can put that energy into growing the business instead of maintaining the business, right? And so the three ways to get more done with less is some things to think about is the Pareto principle, like that 20% of the effort gets 80% of the results. You've probably heard of this before, but it's true. In most of the things which we do, okay, most of it doesn't really bring results. We're wasting a lot of time, okay? But there's 20% of the effort of what we do is actually what brings the money. And so we should do more of the 20% that's actually bringing the results. Okay. And so when you do an exercise like this, it forces you to apply this at an extreme because you're only going to be working a limited amount of hours and it gets you to look at your company in that way. Another one, and this is one of the reasons I was able to do this, okay, was by avoiding competition. So because I was good at avoiding competition, it meant that I didn't have to be always fighting my competition and running the business in some kind of cutthroat way. Whereas if I don't have the edge, I'm going to lose. Okay, so the guy up on screen here, you might have heard of him. He's one of the founders of PayPal, right? And has gone on to launch Palantir, which is an AI company. And his philosophy has always been avoid competition, which they've done very, very well. And it's made him a ton of money. And my third one is a bit unusual, but it's the opposite. Okay, it's be boring. Because when you run a business, you're bombarded with all of the sexy, the interesting, the popular stories, the rags to riches stories, the people driving flashy cars, the Andrew Tate stories, all of this social media BS, which one, we know is not real. We know really that what we see on social media is not the reflection of people's lives. It's a presentation of what they want people to think of you. So it isn't realistic anyway. And so we know underneath all of that, the story is much more different. Okay. But also that it's in business, often the things which make money, it's not the exciting stuff. It's not the new projects. It's not the crazy social media campaigns. It's the really boring, repetitive things in business which work. And guess what? Nobody talks about them. Okay. So this presentation is not going to be a hit on YouTube because what I'm going to cover in the second part is actually quite boring stuff, but it makes a ton of money and the money is exciting. But because it's not exciting, because it's not trendy, people ignore it. But that's an advantage because if people are ignoring it, you're avoiding competition. Okay, so doing the boring stuff is boring, but it makes your life so much easier. Okay. And if you want to do the exciting stuff, it's highly competitive and also very difficult. So it means you're going to have to hustle. So it's no surprise that the social media stars tell you to hustle like crazy because that's what they have to do to survive in their environment. But if you do the boring stuff, okay, and you run a business like Basecamp, right, which you've never heard of, probably, okay, and no one knows who the owner is, okay, you wouldn't recognize him, you wouldn't know what he's looked like, but they're making a ton of money just doing boring things, okay? And so this is the philosophy, and I'm going to show you how I apply this in a real way. The Pareto principle, avoid competition and be boring, okay? And so this brings us to part two, the method, okay? So just give me a yes or a one in the chat box if this aligns with something which you would want to do. Okay, that you were prepared to do maybe something a little bit more boring, a little bit more monotonous to actually get the result. And that requires discipline. And I had a slide up earlier saying choose your suffering. So your choice is work your ass off or do something more boring and work less. Okay. So I chose the boring side of it. Okay. And so with this method, you can grow any brand with huge ROI. Okay. It's a long-term play. You're building a long-term business that keeps paying you year after year. You're building a brand. It's an 80-20 approach. It's super, super boring. Okay. No one's gonna congratulate you or consider you famous or, kind of like a YouTube star or anything like this. But it makes money and it's also avoiding competition. All right. And this is possible because most brands are addicted to the hustle culture, the status, the fast food results, and following what everyone else does. Okay. What's one of the hottest topics that you see out there for, say, beginner entrepreneurs? It's, say, growing an e-commerce business, running ads, and making more creative. And what we see in the industry is everyone's talking about social media and running social media campaigns. Everyone's talking about making more creative for their ads, and they're coming up with the fastest ways to do this. Okay. And it's really difficult to do this at scale, especially if you rely on this. All right. And also consider this, all right, which I think is very, very true. All right. Rich is loud, wealth is quiet, poor is flashy. Okay. And think about what this means for the information which comes into your mind. And I don't know, like, if you notice that this is I think you can see the number of attendees here. This is a quieter session than normal. If we choose a more interesting topic, we can bring like 4 times the amount of people. Okay. And we also don't cover the most exciting get rich quick type topics. We're helping businesses grow, right? And, create ongoing revenue. But think about the fact that you are presented with all of these loud, rich people, these poor, flashy people, okay, screaming how you should be running your business, looking cool and interesting. They're great presenters, okay? But there's quietly millionaires, billionaires, and trillionaires who you've never heard of, who you'd never listened to. Um, and they're pretty much invisible. Okay. And so what does this mean? It means you hear too much from the people who want to be loud and show off their wealth, right? And they want to be in front of the camera. You hear too much from the wannabes who want to be those types of people. But the richest people, the most successful people, you probably don't even know who they are, what their methodologies are, and how they do it. So this means that 90% of people are learning from these two on the right and left, but they're not learning from the people in the middle. Okay. And that means that if you're following the status quo, you're probably doing it in a way which is ridiculously competitive. All right. And so since 2014, what we've been doing is quietly using these 3 rules, the 80/20 rule, avoiding competition and being boring, to grow businesses with simple content and systemizing the entire process. Okay. Right? So in 3 to 4 hours, you can set this entire thing up and automate simple content marketing campaigns for the entire year for just about any business. So this is one of the methods that we apply, right, with these 3 rules. Okay. And I'm not saying paid ads are wrong. I'm not saying that other ways of generating traffic or social media is wrong. Okay. We do all of that stuff. Okay. We've generated millions and millions of dollars in profits from paid ads. We still run paid ads. Okay. It's just that one, paid ads only work if you do that. 40% of your traffic needs to be organic for paid ads to work. I'm going to show you why in a moment. Okay. But it also just gives a basis to the business, which just works, which just repeats, and that we can apply to any business. Okay. And it comes from this question, which is common sense. Okay, that if you want traffic and you want to make sales, then the answer to this is really, really important. So type in the chat, what is the number one website in the world? Type in the chat, what's the number one website in the world? The one that's the most popular with the most traffic. Awesome. And pretty much everyone here who follows us got this right. It's Google. Google still remains the number one source in the world. Number two is YouTube. Okay. Right. What are people talking about right now? If you speak to the average marketing person that wants to drive traffic, what platforms do they talk about? They tend to talk about Facebook, Instagram, and ChatGPT. Okay. They don't even have as much traffic as YouTube. Okay. So Randy says AI, but I'm talking about the actual websites themselves. Okay. So they tend to be talking about Facebook, Instagram, ChatGPT for the most part. That's where everyone's talking about right now. And mainly Facebook and Instagram because that's where they run ads. Okay. But Google has more traffic than the rest of the top 10 combined. Okay. With AI coming out, Google has not shrunk and got less traffic. Google has got more traffic because people are doing more specific searches, and Google is an AI platform. And as I always said, it was going to beat ChatGPT, and that's exactly what's happening. All right. And let's look at this for, say, e-com businesses. Okay. And let's look at where they make their money. Like, let's look at the giants to see if we can learn something. Amazon's biggest source of traffic is direct because they've got a brand. Okay. But then after that, it's Google. Okay. And then it's YouTube. And then it's Bing. So social media doesn't even come into it. Isn't that crazy? All right. And there is social media will drive some brand awareness and there'll be some brand searches. Same with ChatGPT. Amazon will get recommended and many people will go type it into Google, but you would still get some referral traffic, right? So like Google just dominates here, right? And when you look at this, when you look at the traffic that they get from AI platforms, okay, you can see ChatGPT is number one, but what's missing here? Can anyone see what's missing? Does anyone know the website, the AI platform that's missing here that often gets overlooked? It's Google. So, okay, sure, you've got Gemini, but Gemini is a Google AI platform, but Google results give AI answers. And so actually Google traffic is also AI answer traffic. So it's both the biggest search and AI platform together. Okay, so ChatGPT isn't number one, it's actually still Google. Okay, but they're still getting significant amount of visitors from ChatGPT, but Google is going to be drastically higher than that. eBay's biggest traffic source, Google again, same pattern. Walmart's biggest traffic source, Google again, same pattern. Etsy's biggest traffic source, Google again, same pattern. Pinterest actually shows up in this one. Okay. Target, their biggest traffic source, Google again. Okay. Now, has anyone heard of Gymshark? Anyone? Just give me a one in the chat if you've heard of Gymshark. I'll just show you some stats here about Gymshark growth. Okay, and revenue here. Okay, so Gymshark is an e-commerce brand. Okay, started by one guy, never got funding. Okay, initially it got bought out in the end. Okay, but they now do 600 million. That's in UK pounds. So I think that's about $800 million. Okay, in 2024. Okay, they are a billion-dollar brand. Okay, billion-dollar brand. Okay, and Gymshark. Okay, started on $450 per day. All right, hopefully it'll give us a little AI overview here. Okay. Yes, it's accurate that Gymshark's daily sales were roughly $450 per day, okay, before exploding. Okay. Right. So this is someone who grew this as their own personal business and grew it into a billion-dollar brand. Do you think there's something worth looking at here that we might want to pay attention to what this brand does, given that it became a nine-figure per year revenue company, right, with valuations in the billions? Let's look at the breakdown of where their money comes from. What do you notice on screen? Type it out. What do you see here? Is it what you would have expected here of where their revenue would come from? Most people would expect that most of their revenue would come from social media or from paid ads, but it's the opposite. Okay. Organic search is 30 to 35% of their revenue. Okay. And then AI and direct traffic to their website, okay, is 40 to 50%. Now, the interesting thing about direct traffic is it's really just a reflection of all of these other ones, okay, with AI rolled in. So if people find them on social media, often they don't click the link in the bio, they go direct and Google the brand. So it comes up where they just go direct to the website. Okay. They just type it in the browser, they go to the website. Paid ads, similar people will then go research them, they'll look them up in organic, they'll actually go to the website directly, this sort of thing. Okay. So this kind of captures all of the different traffic sources. And then you can see here of the traffic sources, the organic and AI is by far the biggest. So isn't it odd that everyone focuses on social media and paid ads when the biggest driver of sales is actually organic free traffic and it converts better than the other sources? Okay. And Google and AI are now the biggest sources of buyer traffic, but they're the most overlooked and they're the least competitive. All right. Because everyone else is just saying run more paid ads and make more creative. Okay. But if you hate money, right? That's what you should be doing is focused on just on making creative. I'm not saying running ads is wrong or making more creative is a bad strategy for paid ads, but you're focused on one of the smaller shares of revenue. And also your paid ads won't function if you don't do organic, which is what I'm going to show you because the problem is bigger than it seems. That if someone sees an ad or they see your brand on social media, what do? Right? Type in the chat. What's the next thing that you do if you see an ad and you're interested in the product? What do? You go do research, okay? And you don't just do a little bit of research. You'll explore, you'll look at competitors, you'll do some evaluation, and it might take you a few days before you decide. You'll Google it. You might look at their YouTube, you might look at Instagram, you might research videos, you might ask AI, all of these different things. And most people, most buyers, they do a lot of research. Okay. And that means that 93% of people are doing some kind of research online. And so if you're only trying to optimize the funnel for your paid ads, or you're trying to do more paid ads creative, okay, then you're essentially only optimizing for the people that will view the ad and then will never do any research. And it's like only practicing a handshake for a job interview. So if you just focus on paid ads and you try and, do funnel hacking, you try and do more creative, right? It's literally like someone going for a job and just practicing the handshake and forgetting every other part of the interview and forgetting the fact that they've got nothing good written on their LinkedIn. There's nothing good on their CV. They haven't covered any of the other areas. Obviously, it's going to be a struggle to get a job, but this is how most people treat their business. Why do they do it? Because they're copying all of the influencers. They're copying all of the people out there who are saying, hustle more, run more ads, do paid ads. This is how we grow and how we, make seven figures like in 1 year. Paid ads, paid ads, paid ads. But, or social media, but it's organic, which actually closes the sale. So if you're doing social media, if you're doing paid ads, but you're not covering the research side of the journey, then you're throwing your ad money down the toilet. Because the reason why Gymshark's ads work, the reason why their social media works is if you then go Google the brand, if you go Google the competition, if you go look them up, if you go ask AI and organic is going to nudge them towards the sale. All right. So the question is when people research your brand, your products, your competitors, your solutions, the problems that they've got, do you show up? Okay. And if you don't show up, you're not going to convert them into a buyer. You're going to get less traffic. And ultimately, people will go off and buy from a competitor who does fill that research gap and gets recommended. Okay. And so then which side of the table would you prefer to be on? Right? The one where you're not found, you're not mentioned, or the one where you're actually being recommended. And if people start researching your product category, you start being recommended and people buy, all right? And so that's what we've decided to do. Because if you think about it, you've got a mum, she's busy, she sees an ad on the phone, she sees something on social media, okay? Then if she remembers the brand, she's going to maybe Google that later. She's going to go ask AI later. If she remembered, she might not remember the name of the brand. So if, even if she looks at the brand, but nothing shows, you're not going to get the conversion. Okay. But she might not have even remembered the brand. And if she hasn't remembered the brand, then what's she going to look for? She's going to start asking questions related to the product and some of the things she can remember the ad. So she's going to start doing some targeted research. Okay, so she might have heard in the ad say that it doesn't contain a certain chemical. Like, let's say it was for a face cream. She sees an ad for a face cream, right? That's going to be moisturizing, that's going to reduce wrinkles, and it says it doesn't have this certain chemical in. She might not remember the brand name, but she might go look it up. She needs to make sure that the brand shows, otherwise she's going to buy from someone else. Okay. And so if you don't have anything showing up, they're not going to buy from you. And so people are already doing research and looking for your product. So you want to make sure that you show up. And for example, just think of the research journey. Someone might be considering buying a face cream, but they might look or know about dangerous chemicals in cream, and then they might go research different products that don't contain them. So it's also a source of traffic for people looking for the things which they want. And the average product often has thousands of topics. Okay. But 80 to 99% of these topics, these questions have never been covered. And think about all the questions that customers might have before buying your products and services, right? Every day, just with Google, 15% of searches have never been made before because people are discovering new things, new ideas, new things that they care about. All right. And so, it might be hard to, show up and be recommended for, say, Apple iPhone or keto recipes, but for something very specific, right? Okay, you have the ability to show up and answer those questions. And there's literally thousands of them, and people are asking more and more specific questions because AI is giving better and better answers. So this is a really important slide, and you might want to take a screenshot of this. But can you see how you can mix and match literally hundreds of different ideas and topics about your product? Okay, so maybe just type in the chat what your product is. Okay. Or just write down some of the different angles that you could go about. So I can help you with this right now, right? If you throw an example product in the chat, we can look at like just some of the many different topics. I can reel off the top of my head. I'm going to give you some tools, some processes, and everything else on how to go forward with this, right? But Randy says life insurance. Okay, so colors, ingredients, materials does not contain sizes. All right, doesn't apply, but compatibility. Okay, because there's insurance for different types of groups of people, different states. Okay, so compatibility in types of users, veterans. Okay, insurance for younger people, older people, married people, certain job situations, certain states, certain locations. Okay, so and then you've got problem solved, like insurance that covers certain things, that has certain benefits, that has certain features. What about the comparisons to all the other companies and then the locations as well that it's provided? So you can all of a sudden see that there's literally just in insurance, literally thousands of topics. Okay. Right. Okay. So someone says X-ray equipment, right? Portable X-ray equipment, if that was your niche. Okay. So again, there's going to be different materials, different features, different benefits, different problems that it solves, different locations that it might be sold. There's going to be comparisons to other products. Okay, there's going to be compatibility with maybe certain software and things. So if you take clothing, you've got colors, you've got materials. If you take supplements, you've got all the ingredients it does contain, it doesn't contain. Okay, and so on and so on. So can you quickly just see whatever your industry, there's literally thousands and thousands of questions that people will be asking. Okay. Now, here's the wrong way to go about it, but just to show you, if you go into ChatGPT, now this isn't a method that I recommend, by the way, because ChatGPT is not good at this. Okay. But I'm just going to give here, and this is training ChatGPT better than what it normally would be. I'll just take this slide, throw it in here, and then we've got security alarms. Okay. And I would just say here, based on the image, give me 100 topics that people may ask before they buy. Okay. Now, ChatGPT doesn't know the best methodology. It doesn't understand how to get traffic. It doesn't understand competition. It doesn't understand demand. It's guessing all of these things. Okay. Right. And so now it's coming up with kind of like different purchase topics, like the available colors and materials and build, what it does not contain, and so on. Right. And so I could now turn these into buyer full questions. All right. And I'm not going to get it to write out the whole list. But then if I say turn these into full buyer questions, it's going to come up with a lot of topics. Okay. What color does a security alarm come in? Does an alarm have a modern or minimal design? So this is starting to move you closer to maybe how you could come up with topics, right, on your particular model of alarm. Okay, here, this isn't great, but this is giving you an idea, right? Is a alarm system compatible with Alexa and so on and so on, right? So you take any topic, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of topics which you can cover, and 90% of these topics in your niche, they're hidden. You can't find them through keyword tools. AI doesn't really know about them. Okay, right? There's just not enough data and not enough good sources of data to actually get this, because even though there's keyword tools which tell you what people search for, that information is very, very inaccurate, and it's looking in the past. It's not looking at what people will search for next, but it also only gives you the highest volume stuff, and it doesn't give you everything. Okay. And so it's often shown that there's zero searches for something when there can be like 100 searches for something. And so all you need to do is publish content that answers these questions, and you have a new source of high converting traffic that helps increase conversions when people research your product. Okay. And you can automate the entire process. Okay. And it makes money by boosting the organic traffic, organic e-commerce sales, organic online sales. You get recommended by AI. Okay. Why do you get recommended by AI? Well, if you have a question about a product, then ChatGPT and Google will go look online for that answer and then summarize the answer. So if you actually publish the answer, then you're more likely to get recommended by AI. Okay. And it also means that if you make sure that you're showing up for the questions that people ask when they do the research, that a competitor can drive a ton of sales for you. Okay, because they'll be driving the awareness, but then you'll be closing the deal when you answer that question and give the right answer. And you're growing then your traffic on your blog, on your website, and it's also something that you can sell as a service. Okay. 1 to 3K per month, but we often sell this at like 12K per month or more and do high volume, and it works in any niche. Okay. And so just give me a one in the chat that you recognize that by publishing content on these buyer questions, we call it answer marketing. That if you answer questions and publish this in lots of places on your website across the internet, that you're going to get more traffic and make more sales. It's pretty common sense, right? This is the crux of what you do. Okay. And there's really only two challenges of this is how do you get Google and AI to show your content that you put out? Okay. And how do you get enough content out there to make a difference? Okay. Because, if you can come up with thousands of topics, how do you then do this at scale? So these are the two problems that we've got to solve. And coming back to our philosophy, this is just a boring, repeatable process which makes money. So in order to show up in Google and AI, we ask the question, what does Google and AI want? Okay. So Google and AI want to show you the most accurate, trustworthy, and relevant results and relevant answers. So we've got to give it accurate, trustworthy content and show that it's accurate and trustworthy. So how do they do this? Well, one of the ways that AI and Google do this is they cheat a little bit, is they rely on bigger brands. They say the bigger the brand, the more legal pressure that they have, the more likely that they can be sued. And so the more that they tend to focus on giving out more accurate, reliable information that follows the law. Okay. And in some way, that's largely true. Okay. Compared to, say, some small spam sites which could just publish junk. So they essentially handpick content from bigger websites. And ultimately, what this means is in Google, in ChatGPT, that a smaller number of very, very large sites often dictate what gets said. Okay. And so behind most search results are billionaire brands, right? These massive, massive sites. And so ultimately, that means if, you're not going to get published on these big sites and pay for placements and so on, that, you're not going to be able to win. Okay. And this is what big brands do. Big brands like Amazon spend a huge amount of time on their popularity, their authority, their SEO, and so on. And so this is kind of typical. And so how can you compete? Well, there's a few ways to do this. Is one, remember we said one of the philosophies is to avoid competition. Okay, so if you can find topics that are not answered very well, then you can show up on the front page of Google, right? And you can get recommended by AI. And this is important because people are asking really specific questions to AI. All right. So as an example, like a very, very specific topic could be, say, treadmills for people over 300 pounds. Okay. So that could be a topic that's pretty specific. Okay. And then AI is going to look up all of the information and then give the answer. Okay. Right. And so this is a topic that's been done a little bit, but it's not massively, massively saturated. Okay. And so this is an example topic. And I'm not going to say who, but we've got our client here recommended several times. Okay. For terms like this. And so by finding very, very specific questions, your chance of actually showing up as a recommendation in AI and just showing up in Google increases a lot. And so that's what we do is find low competition topics, which we know people search for. Okay. This is the same method used by billionaire brands. Okay. So for example, Apple, when Apple first launched its first computer, is this computer that you see here on the left, they weren't trying to reach everyone who wanted a home computer. They went after DIY tech hobbyists that wanted to build a DIY computer. Okay. And then they started selling something a little bit more robust in a specialist store before they went mass market. Okay. And so this is the idea that you go after very, very, very specific audiences, but you do it at scale by coming up with all of the questions that people are asking and providing your product as the answer. And then you simply publish on big websites. So this is what you can do with Ampcast. This is what we do is we come up with lots of topics and then we publish on hundreds of big sites. So whether our site is big enough or not to show up, at least some of these sites will be big enough to actually get attention to show up in AI and all of that sort of thing. And the average product has thousands of topics, but most of them have never been covered. We've never gone into a niche where we've not found topics that have not been covered. It's just such a massive opportunity because everyone's focused on paid ads. They're not focused on this. And so if you're the only content on that topic, you publish on big trusted sites, Google and AI are obliged to rank you because you're the only source of information on that topic. Give me a one if this makes sense and you understand how powerful this is. Okay, because this is absolutely huge. And this is why you want to come up with hundreds, if not thousands, of topics and get publishing on a regular basis. And so we specialize in finding hidden opportunities in any industry. Okay. This is what we do. This is one of the best things which we do, and it's what we can show you. So I'll give you an example. This is an old example in e-commerce. I'll give you an old one to show you this working several years ago, and then I'll give you a new one that's working here today. And so this was for a product, Physio, okay, which is for people who have asthma. It's a device which helps with their breathing, okay? And they did 110 pieces of content, okay? And so they ended up on the page one of Google. They're not there on the page one of Google anymore. Why? Because they stopped doing the method. Okay. But when they did the method, they absolutely blew up. You're going to see the results here. Now, they got page one for the actual name of the product, which is crazy difficult in the first place to do, but it was done because they did this process. Okay. But they started by, because how, and just an important question here, how do you get page one in Google? What's one of the more important things? Okay. Right? So, what's one of the most important things to rank high on Google is to be the most popular in your niche. Okay, that's ultimately it. The more popular you are in your niche, the more likely you're going to show number one for the main product term in your industry. How do you become popular? Okay, answer thousands of questions on your niche and you're going to get a ton of traffic anyway. Okay, and so you start by covering all these hidden angles, these hidden questions, and then naturally over time you're going to show up on page one. Okay, not every time, but often happens. And so here we showed up for lung cleaning device because that was one of the terms which we'd covered, lung cleaning device, right? So we've got three results here on the front page of Google. Again, this was several years ago. Okay. And you can see here just one of the posts here just blowing up and getting some traffic, super, super niche. Okay. Another one, bronchitis OPEP device. Again, it's showing on the front page. All right. And if you think about it, about how Amazon does it, why Amazon has so much money, why Amazon gets so much traffic is Amazon has 100 million pages. Okay. And I think now it's even higher than that. Ultimately, they've got hundreds of millions of pages, tens of millions of pages, and they have all of the questions, the topics answered. So, like, if you search for Xbox One USB headset, so a USB headset for Xbox One, they've got loads of results which actually answer that question and say, yes, look, my headset works for Xbox Series X, it works for Xbox Series S, and they put all of these topics and keywords, they spam it into the title on Amazon, right? Okay, so that's kind of like how Amazon work, but they try and cover as many topics in the title as possible. Okay, but they can only fit so many words into the title, and you can see it's just almost like a big list of keywords. But you can do this across thousands of different posts that you do on your website because Amazon has thousands of pages covering all of these topics, like USB headset for Xbox One, right? For Skype, for Android, noise canceling features, volume control, mic, the colors, and all of these other different variations. So you could, for example, just for a set of headphones, literally have thousands of different topics of like specific things which people are looking for. Okay. Here, for example, with a supplement, right? Having it oxybenzone free. Okay. Here you've got like sunscreen without oxybenzone, without oxynoxate. Uh, they want it as a spray. They want a Neutrogena one. They want it without benzene. So you can just see here, these are all ones which actually have demand. Same for like anti-aging cream, right? For anti-aging creams for over 50s, for over 40s, and so on. Okay. And one of the ways which we approach this, we don't do it quite like this, but this is a good concept to consider here is you can take things like the audience, you can take things like the benefits and features, you can take uh, maybe the product types or the names of the product, and you can also take some specific maybe qualifiers. here, and you can combine them together. So I could say face cream for over 60s or organic face cream for over 60s, okay, in the USA. That's something that a question that people might ask. They might ask for an eye cream or a moisturizer that's alcohol free for sunburn, okay, that's dermatologist recommended. So can you see how you can combine all of these different ideas and get many, many different combinations? Okay. You can't do it exactly like this because we have to verify demand, but this is giving you an idea of all the different combinations that you can make. Okay. And so we've got say 6, 6, 5, and 5. Okay. And if I just take this concept here and go put it into ChatGPT, right? So we'll start a new chat here. Okay. And so just combine all these ideas together, okay, from each side of diagram. How many combinations of topics could we have? And give examples. All right. And so it's going to look at the image that I've just shown you here, right, with the different, maybe different product types or the ways you can call the product, the audience. Okay. And of course, these are not conclusive. There's, way, way more of these than we would list. Okay. And so it's got here the similar products, the target demographics, the benefits, the ultra specific. And then it's saying, well, if you combine them, all of those, you've got 1,000 combinations. Okay. And so here's 15 examples of them. Face cream for over 50s with aloe vera, eye cream for sensitive skin, anti-aging made in the USA, moisturizer for dry skin, organic formula, best 2022 or 2026, and so on. So can you see here how you can have just off a few ideas, literally thousands of things that people could be asking in ChatGPT, in Google, okay? Things they could ask after they see an ad, after they see your brand, after they see a competitor's brand, if they want to buy the product. Give me a one in the chat if you recognize just how many topics you could be answering in your industry, like literally thousands, okay, if not tens of thousands. Have you any idea how many sales and traffic this can generate? Is absolutely just fucking insane. All right. So because the amount of sales that you can make for all of these topics, where even if you're getting like 5, 10 people coming through for some of these topics, the buyer intent is so high. So, taking this Air Physio example, this breathing aid, emphysema drug-free breathing aid, we got them on the front page of that. And this is how their traffic panned out here. They were at about 1,000 visitors per month. Okay. Maybe 2,000 visitors per month. Within a month, they got to 7,000. Then they went up to 10,000 visitors per month. Okay. Or over 11,000 by month 2. Okay. Doing this strategy. Okay. And just in month 2, they're driving nearly 100K in sales from search. Okay. For their Air Physio device. Okay. Showing up for all sorts of different keywords on their website and also on other websites. And you can see their traffic just absolutely blew up. Okay. And this was multiple 7 figures in sales. Okay. What happened for this company is they decided to stop doing it. I don't know why. They weren't our client. They were working with one of our agency resellers who follows our strategy, who did it for them. They did 110 pieces of content for them, and then they decided to stop. Then their competition drastically increased at the same time that they decided to stop, and so the competition gradually stole their visibility over the next few years, and they just saw that their traffic just started declining. Because you can keep building the traffic up, you can keep putting out more content, but if you stop, you tend to fall into irrelevance. Okay. And they were getting like literally like a 10, 20x return on this. So crazy that they stopped this. They lost millions of dollars by not continuing this. And I don't know why brands do this, but for whatever reason, they don't consider this answer marketing to be so important because everyone's telling them to run paid ads. Everyone's telling them to hustle on social media. Okay. But then they end up missing out on millions in sales, which is the highest profit. And it's really just having the common sense about the customer journey, right? So, for example, a product that, I've searched for before is sometimes I get sick. I don't want to get sick. right? I run a company. It's like I got kids. I kind of need to function, right? No one wants to be sick. I found that vitamin C is something that can help you, but if you take vitamin C and you take too much of it, it's going to give you diarrhea because your body can't absorb it. So you get the type which is called liposomal, and then your body can absorb it. You don't get diarrhea. And also, a chemical that is in a lot of supplements, which is some people consider is maybe not so good. Maybe it's just hype, I don't know, but is magnesium stearate. So I have searched for liposomal vitamin C without magnesium stearate. Okay. And I would want to find out which particular product has those features. Okay. And then if I see that that content's been published on some website somewhere, especially if it's more of an authoritative site and it recommends a place to buy, then I'm going to go buy from that place where it says, hey, this product has what you're looking for. Great. Okay. And if AI gives the answer to that, because it finds it on these big sites, it's going to do the same. All right. And again, in local marketing, same thing. You can cover all of these different possible combinations, possible search terms. You can publish in hundreds of places, and then you end up dominating Google and dominating the front page. Okay. And this drives like literally tons of high value, high converting traffic. And people who do this for customers get paid very, very well. Okay. And they keep increasing their business and their traffic and making more sales. And it's just like people do when they sell on Amazon, is covering a lot of keywords, but on Amazon, you only get one page, one listing. With your own website, you can put out as much content as you want, and you can also publish across the entire internet. And this is why we've seen so many people having massive success with this, is if they just follow the process and answer questions online, they get traffic. Traffic should never be a problem. Just answer questions about your product. That's it. Because it boosts your sales. You get recommended by AI. You're hijacking competitor traffic. Okay. And we've got really good methodologies of how to do that and what topics to tap into. You're growing the traffic on your website, your blog as well, right? So it's coming to your website and you can sell this as a service. Okay. Let's look at an example hijacking competitors' traffic and how this works. Well, think about it. This is what people do, right? Especially in e-commerce, is they run ads and they often only run meta ads, and then they're like optimizing their ad, optimizing their funnel and trying to make money. What's the average return from this? It's like 1 to 2x. It's not particularly high. If you're getting like a 4x return on your ads, you're considered a genius. Okay. But what happens is most people don't go through the funnel. They don't stay on your website. They go start doing research. They see the ad, they go research. Maybe even if they go to the website, then they start looking you up. We all do this. We all know we do this. So why is there not a single fucking ad course on the planet which tells people to optimize the content that they put out? So when people research after reading the ad, they go see the content and the sales get closed. Has anyone ever seen a course from anybody ever which tells them this? Tell me in the chat, has anyone ever seen this? We're the only people on the planet talking about this. It blows my mind because this is common sense. Everybody knows that if you see an ad, you go research the product, you go ask ChatGPT, you go look in Google, you go check videos. Not one single fucking ad person, not one single agency talks about this. It is absolutely insane. How can an entire industry be so oblivious to what the hell is going on in the real world? Okay. Let that be a lesson, right, to learning stuff off YouTube. There's lots of great stuff on YouTube. I learn a lot of things, but recognize that entire industries, okay, become religious and they copy each other and they all do the same playbook and they all talk to each other and they all become exceptionally close-minded. Okay. Right. This has happened every single time in every industry. Okay, that people can't see the forest for the trees because they get so caught up in the thing which maybe worked for them initially or what everybody else does. Okay. Anybody know why this happens? I can tell you why this happens. Okay. It seems crazy. It seems like, what, are all these people really that stupid that they can't see this? These are often ridiculously intelligent people. Here's the reason why it happens. To run and start an ad on Facebook is one of the easiest things you can do in marketing. You make a post on Facebook, which everybody has done. Everybody knows how to make a post on social media. Okay, we've all uploaded a photo to Facebook or social media or on WhatsApp. It's something that's made so easy that kids can do it. And there's a button when you post something on Facebook which says boost, and then you are now an advertiser. Okay, So it's so easy to start. And then within about 10 minutes, you're seeing traffic and you have a result. And a day later, you might have even made a sale. So it's fast, it's exciting, it's super easy. And then there's tons of 20-year-olds teaching you how to do this because they found out that they could do this on Facebook and that they could run a business. And then they all teach this. This is what all the young people are talking about. They're the people that are cool on social media. And because it's easy to start with, it's easy to understand. It's a beginner strategy. Everybody does it. And then it becomes the industry standard and it's what everybody talks about. Okay. Facebook isn't incentivized to tell you that, well, actually, you should go optimize your content. Hyros, which is doing the ad tracking, they're not going to tell you to go off and do content because guess what? You can't track it so easy. You can't track what's happening when people go research in ChatGPT and they go research on Google and they go to other people's websites and they go to different places. You can't track it. So there's nobody that's incentivized to teach you that actually most of the people that see your ad are actually going to get closed in content. Okay. And you can't track it. It's complicated. They don't know how to address this. They don't know how to fix this. And so they just pretend it doesn't exist. Okay. That is a massive opportunity for you if you act on this. Okay. And if you act on this, then you will make money, right? It's really that simple. And it encapsulates all of these things I talked about in the philosophy. It's an 80-20 rule that you're putting time into a content plan, which you can put together in a matter of hours. Okay. You can then automate. You could hire us to put the content out. You can use our platform to create the content. You could write the content manually, however you want to decide to do it, but you just publish content every single day. Okay. So it's literally 3 to 4 hours prep, 30 minutes to an hour every single day. And typically the results which we've seen is businesses growing millions of dollars in sales. Okay. It avoids competition because you're one, not doing what everyone else does, which is paid ads. You're doing the thing that almost nobody does and nobody talks about. So you're avoiding the competition. Okay. And you're picking topics that are often overlooked by the competition as well. So you're not having to compete. When you run paid ads, you're competing like crazy. It's cutthroat. When you do this, you're not having to compete anywhere near as much. And it's boring. Okay. You're not writing, you know, flashy YouTube videos. You're not doing, social media, shorts and reels. Okay. You're not writing like a cool sales page. You're answering a very simple question on a product which is boring, okay, to the majority of people. Okay. The topic, like I showed you just before here, right? Like, say this one, liposomal vitamin C without magnesium stearate. This is not exciting. Okay. You're not going to get a million YouTube views. You're not going to be Mr. Beast. Okay. But this stuff is what makes money, but it's boring, right? And because it's boring, it doesn't get as much attention. So you avoid competition, but it's one of those things which makes a lot of money. Okay. And so then the question for you then is how do you take the next step to actually make this happen? Okay. To actually put this into work. And so I've spent, say, several years teaching this to people, and the people that take action get incredible results. We would love to see a lot more people take action on this because in every niche, there's a massive opportunity, and you just need to sit down and do it every day. And so, what is the next step? Type in the chat. What's the next step that you would need to do to kick all of this stuff off? What would be the next step that you would need to do to kick all of this off? Just type in the chat. Yeah. So the question to you, like after I've shared this stuff with you today, think for yourself, what's the next step? Because this is an important concept in business. In business, you always want to know what the next step is. You don't necessarily need to know what step 50 is, step three, step 20. You need to know the next thing in the sequence that you need to do and you work on it. Okay. So Marius has a platform that does it all, maybe, but what's the first step you would have to take in the platform anyway? All right. And so a couple of people got it here, right? Serge says take action, but what action should you take, right? Lawrence says content creation. That's a step further. There's something you need to do before you actually make the content. Okay. And Eric's got it. Randy's got it here. Um, and yeah, it's actually coming up with the topics, right? if you have a list of topics that you have to write, okay? So, for example, we made a bunch of topics here. This isn't how you should do it, right? This is a simplified and not quite the right way of doing it. If you did it this way, you actually could run into some trouble, okay? We used to do it this way, but we changed it of how we approached it. But it's giving you some ideas. But let's just say these were legit topics that you could use, okay? Some of them will be legit topics here that you can use. If you have a list and it tells you what you need to create content on, then you don't have to think. You just turn up every day and be like, right, okay, this one, bang, done. Next. This one, bang, done. Next. You can even just give the list to someone else and they can do it. All right. So the first thing you need, the next step is actually coming up with a list of topics. Okay. So you want to plan out your content for the next 3 months or for the entire year. This is what we do. We often, in some industries, like if it's a certain project, we might just plan it out for the entire year. Sometimes we do it in kind of like batches of 2 to 3 months, and then come back and review and come up with topics for the next 2 or 3 months. So you want to be coming up with like a list of 50, 100, right? 1,000, 2,000 topics that you can cover. Okay. And so if you would like to find out exactly and go into detail of how we do this, okay, you're going to see fast methods where you can do it in like 5, 10 minutes using tools, okay, right? But that's good to get started. But we're also going to show you how to judge the competition, how to judge the demand, okay, how to approach this manually to get to uncover some insights where you can completely avoid the competition and come up with topics that nobody else does. I'm going to do an in-depth session about how to create these $1 million content plans. Okay. And so if you want to be part of that, okay, then there's an offer to join that here. And also we've got an offer where we will do the content plan for you as well. Okay. And so we do a 2-part live workshop updated for 2026. Okay. Showing you exactly how we plan topics and how we have done multiple 7 figures in sales doing this. All right. And so I'm going to show you just a case study. This case study is on our website. Anyone can go look it up. And we've got a lot of case studies, which actually takes us, we can't keep up with the case studies we've got. We actually have a backlog of case studies to roll out here, but here's the latest one which we published. Okay. Right. And so this is a company, and I'll zoom in here. Okay. It's a company that has spent over 100 million, or sorry, has competitors that have spent over 100 million annually on content and advertising. Okay. Right. So they're up against massive, massive brands, right? 9-figure billionaire brands. They only had 60K to invest in content for a year. Okay. Now, you don't have to invest anywhere near that amount to get results, but the reason they invested that is because of the results that they got. But bear in mind, they're being outspent 7,000 to 1. They're in a very, very, very competitive industry here. Okay. So bear that in mind. Let's have a look at the results. Okay. So over a 6-month period, just the Google traffic, okay, grew to 41,000 visits. Okay. With average monthly sales from the blog of $300,000. Okay. And it's a 61.5x return. What's the average return with paid ads? 1 to 2x. This is a 60x return. $1 in, $60 out. This is absolutely insane. Okay. Now, this is a case study with a high number. Now I think they're over 80. Okay. Because it keeps on stacking and stacking. I'm going to show you the graph in a minute. Okay. But but this isn't typical. It's not typical we get over 60. Okay. It happens, but it's not like happens all the time. What's typical is in the range of like 5 to 50x. Okay, 5 to 50x. If it's at 5, we're not very happy. Okay, we like to see it above 10, ideally above 20, and in some industries it just stacks and it just keeps on growing. Okay, and here's just some of the stats here, right, to compare. So you've got big, massive brands that have got tons of pages. Okay, their budgets here are in the hundreds of millions. Okay, and this brand here that's like tiny in comparison, okay, it's nowhere near as big, is at half the traffic of one of these 9-figure companies. Okay. And will beat them probably in the next 6 months. Okay. Now, if you're this small brand that isn't a household name and you have grown more organic traffic, okay, and remember the amount of organic traffic for Gymshark, right? Of how many sales it made. Okay, let me see if I can find that slide again here for Gymshark. It was a little bit earlier. So where was it? Right here. Okay. So Gymshark here, they have more traffic, okay, on social media. So they've got 660,000 sessions here, okay, that have come from social media, but the views on social media is in the tens of millions, okay? So they have about 10, 20, 30x the amount of reach on social media than they do on organic search, but it produces 30 to 35% of the revenue, okay? Right? So think about that. And so the same is true here with this is such high converting traffic that this brand is spending tens of millions to generate this, and this small brand has spent a fraction of that. Okay, they're being outspent 7,000 to 1. What do you think Nordic Track thinks when it sees the impact that this small brand is having? That's painful. And so what's one of these big brands going to want to do? They're going to want to buy the company. Okay. Because they can't replicate what they're doing because they don't know why it works, because they haven't, because there's nothing posted about this online, right? They're not aware of like what we do at Amplifier. Okay. And so this is just insane in terms of the return that you can get and the value of the company. It's like absolutely crazy, right? So this is really something that you 100% want to do. And this is how we show you how we do content plans, which get these 10, 20, 50x returns. Okay. And so if you follow our methodology for how to do these content plans, you can also get really big returns because it's the topics that you choose that has a big impact. We'll also give you our 1 million content plans topic tools. We have a few of them. Okay. So there's actually 4. Okay. And there'll be a new one for you as well. Okay. That hasn't been seen before. Okay, how you actually drive the traffic, how you structure things. Okay, you'll also get places where you can publish for free. Okay, so you don't have to use our platform to publish. There are some free places you'd have to do it manually. Okay, so you don't have to use our platform to publish all over the internet. You can also just publish to your website. All right. And so this is what's going to be included. 2-part session, how we do the content plan, how we pick all of the topics, all right, the tools to do it, all right, some of the manual methodologies, all of this stuff, all right, to an advanced level, okay, and also where you can then publish the content for free if you don't use our platform, for example, all right. And so we're not charging 5K for this, even though this is a methodology that's generated millions in sales. We're not charging 1K, right? 197 would be a fair price, but we've got for the first 100 people here just 97. Okay. So for the first 100 people, $97 if you jump in quick. All right. Now on the page, all right, I'm going to give you a link. I'll put the link on screen in just a second. You've also got an option where we'll do the plan for you. Okay. And we'll publish the first piece of content on 300 plus sites. Okay. And that also comes where you can then also create this content for free using our platform going forward. So there's an option on the page to jump in, all right, get access to our Ampcast platform and get a done for you plan. Okay. So the link is here up on screen. It's yesit's4.me/1MCP. All right. So you can just join the course, 2 live sessions, 97. There's also an option there on the page where we'll do the plan for you. Okay. So you'll need to allow us some time to put that together for you. We do that manually. We do all the research, the demand, the competition, using our own tools and using a lot of manual, just looking and understanding the niche. Okay. Plus we'll publish one of your campaigns on 300 plus sites. Okay. And then you can use our platform also to create content moving forward. All right. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask. All right. And is there a guarantee? Okay. So yes, you've got a 30-day guarantee. So you can go through the training. Okay. You don't like it, you can ask for a refund. No problem. Do we use any tools yet? So we've already got some free tools out there. You might have seen those things before. We'll also discuss how to use them. We'll discuss what they can do, what they can't do. All right. We'll show you how to use these tools together. And there'll also be a new tool in there as well for you to use. Okay. Which isn't currently available. All right. So how can you tell if it's high or low competition? We're going to cover exactly that. All right. And here's the thing, there isn't a tool online that can tell you the competition. Okay. Um, so it's possible maybe like at some point we might be able to build something which could give you a rough estimate, but it would still be limited. But any of the tools out there now, they don't give you competition. They're really, really inaccurate and they're not worth using. This includes Ahrefs, includes SEMrush, any tool which gives you a competition score. The competition score is a flawed metric and it has been for a long time. If you use it, it's not going to help you. Okay, so we approach competition in a different way. Okay. How much work is it really? Okay, so generally, yeah, you can come up with hundreds of topics in about 3 to 4 hours. Okay. If you're cutting corners, which I don't recommend, you can do it in about 20 minutes. All right. And that's going to put you ahead. We recommend taking a bit longer because it gives you a real big advantage. And you might have a question. You see the results here. Okay. So they're doing now, I think probably now is in excess of about $4 million in sales per year from this traffic. Okay. How many topics do you think this fitness brand posts, okay, to achieve this? All right. How many topics have they had to do? The answer is they do one post every day. So they do approximately, 350 posts per year, pieces of content. Okay. So literally, it depends on the industry, but you can make significant, massive gains by just coming up with, a couple of hundred topics and then taking the process of creating that content. All right. Who does this work for? Really, any business with a website where people are doing research online before they buy works absolutely brilliant for e-com, for local, all of these different things. Okay. Can you actually get results? Can you actually show up in ChatGPT? Can you show up in Google for these higher competition questions and topics that people research? The answer is yes, you can, but it takes more time. All right. And that's also something we'll go over to be able to judge what you can actually show up for. All right. Should I never use paid ads? That's not what we said. We recommend that you do paid ads. We just recommend that you also recognize that if you're running paid ads, you need to ensure that when people do the research after seeing your ad, that they're going to see the right types of things showing up that you're going to be recommended. Okay. And if you're not, your paid ads aren't going to work as well. How long do results take? So literally from the moment that you start producing content, you can start and publishing, then you can start getting traffic. But this is a long-term thing. Like on day one, you might have one piece of content. On day two, you've got 10 pieces of the content published. Okay, on day 100, you've got 100. Okay, so the difference between day one and day 100, right, is going to be significantly different because you've got 100 times more content. All right, and so we're talking about putting the plan together, right? Within the 2 sessions that we cover, you'll be able to plan content for your own business, for any business, all right? And apply that straight away. But obviously you have to then go ahead and produce the content. How much content is ideal? We say start with a minimum of one per day. Okay. But for a local business, even one per week. In fact, even one per month can have a really, really big impact for a local business. All right. Say for e-commerce, for a national brand, we say at least one per day. And then you can be doing as much as you want. Like why stop at one per day? You can do 10 per day. All right. So we just keep expanding. Can I get you to do more campaigns for me? So yeah, there's options for that. You can reach out to us. You can speak to us. We'll be meeting on these 2 sessions. Okay. You can always reach out, ask us. We've got options where we can do campaigns for you. We can manage your entire campaigns. And of course, there's an option on the page where we'll put your plan together for you and do the first campaign. All right. Does this free traffic cost money? All right. So the traffic itself doesn't cost money. This is free traffic from AI, from Google. You can even get traffic from video. All right. From podcasts and so on when we show you how we put this together. So it's free traffic, but your investment is in the time to come up with the plan and to produce the content and publish it in places. Okay, so it's free traffic, but you have to do the work and the publishing and the distribution to drive that traffic. What if I want to do the content manually, but get your distribution? That's also an option. You can do that for sure. Okay. Do I really not have to be a good writer? So no, we show you how you can do this with AI. So you don't have to be a good copywriter or a good marketer to do this. Um, okay, so the link is up on screen here. I'm just going to run through the chat here and answer any questions coming through. I can see Riley is answering them, but if you want to join, I'm going to be wrapping up very, very, very soon. Okay. Um, so let's just see some of the questions coming in. What happens after the training? Well, you make your content plan and then you start producing content. All right. You'll be in our Facebook group. You can always ask any questions if you need help. You can reach out to us. Can I promote ebooks? Yep, you certainly can if you want to. Generally, it's best to be promoting your own website. Um, so AJ says great information. Uh, how does this interface if we are already using done for you service? Do we set that up first or campaigner for a client? So, AJ, like if you're a reseller, if you hire us to produce content for you, right, you still need a plan. Okay, so you can on the page there's an option you can hire us to do the plan. You can just sign up for the training. I'll just bring it up on screen here. So that's your choice, right? So you can just get the training, or you can get the training and also we'll do the plan. We'll do the topics for your website. Okay, and we'll also publish a campaign, one of those topics for you. Okay. So it's up to you, which one here that you choose to do. Okay. Um, Is this for doing for our clients and what are the costs to continue using? So here is Lee, it's coming up with a plan of content topics for your which you can do for yourself, for your clients, and then the idea is that you publish content on those topics, and we'll show you in the training how to go ahead and do that. How would this work for a brand new business? No offer, no followers, no testimonials. Okay, well, just a question. If you intend to get traffic and sales for your business, then you should probably answer questions about what your product is, what it does, the questions people have. So 100% new business, you 100% should be doing this. Um, and obviously, like a newer business, it just has it will just take more time just to build up and grow, right? If you've got less things in place, but you should do it from the start. Like 100%. It's like you need to start getting traffic to the business to make sales, and then you can improve on things as you go. There will be recordings of the sessions, Fabio. Um, so, David, that's not correct. You can cover health supplements. So, some of the sites, when it comes to publishing, it's just you have not as many options because it's a health related topic. But still 100%. We do this in supplement industries all the time. So 100% you can do it. Um, and there's some things you can do in how you mention supplements that can give you more or less options of where you can publish content. Will this service make me as rich as you? So I don't know. There's people who use our platform who make more money than me, right? And it grows their businesses even more. So, depends on your own business. Is it best to send people into a traditional funnel? Depends on the industry, depends on what you're selling, Omar. So I couldn't answer that. It's very specific to your product, to your industry. What do you actually recommend charging clients for a campaign when you're just starting out? So for a campaign, like for one piece, it depends what you're doing. If you're creating just one piece of textual content for their website, we charge $100 to $200 for that. If you're coming up with a content plan, we charge to do content plans hands-on with a business where we work with them over a few hours, like in more in depth. We get them on calls, we interview them, we kind of get brand guidelines together. So it's a more in-depth service, but we'll charge about 2,000 for that. And that's our onboarding process. That's just for the planning stage. For an actual campaign, publishing in a lot of different places, the 300 plus sites, you charge like one to $2,000 per campaign for that. That's quite typical. If you're doing higher volume, you lower the price. It's a great question for our Facebook group where I could maybe write all that stuff down for you as well, AJ, if you wanted to ask that. Um, but yeah, I mean, essentially, this provides when you're able to get such massive returns for clients because you are able to produce such great results, then of course you can charge more, right? So, it might not cost you so much to implement these things, but the results it brings is very big. So you can, be working with 80 to 90% profit margins, which is amazing, right? That you can do that. All right. So if there's no more questions to come through, because I think this is pretty straightforward, you jump in. We've got a couple of training sessions coming up over the next week. We'd love to have you there. I think this is so, so important. I hope you appreciated the format of this with some of the reasoning and stories behind why we do things this way, the philosophy behind it, right? That it's 80-20, we're avoiding competition, and it's just something kind of under the radar and boring, which just continues to work. And for me personally, I love those things because you can set up the system and you can just let things grow, automate, systemize, all of those things. And so when you sign up, you will be invited then to the live sessions. Okay, so it'll be on the thank you page. You'll also get an email with an invite. Any issues, you can drop us an email at support@amplifier.com. Right. We've got this onboarding for these sessions happening. Okay, once we'll have that open, and then once we shut that down, we'll have the training sessions after that. Okay, so just make sure you jump in while the offer is open, because once the training starts, then you won't be able to actually jump in and join these sessions. Okay, also the recordings will all be in the members area along with links to all of the tools as well. Okay, and so look forward to seeing you on these live sessions. All right, and so grab your ticket. It's a pretty low price considering everything that we're going to be giving you and the massive, massive growth that you can do in traffic. All right, so jump in. The link's up on screen, links in the chat, links on the page. All right, and I'll see you there live, and we can start knocking out a really, really powerful content plan for your business, for your clients, right? And then you can apply that to grow your free organic traffic at really good, strong returns. All right. So thank you very much. And I'll see you in the live session for those of you that jump in and join. All right. Thank you very much and catch you soon.